This episode is sponsored by Ginja 9, the Portuguese sour cherry liqueur from Albiluz, Portugal. Crafted by hand, made with love. For more information, visit www.ginja9.com.
Welcome to our Portuguese Table podcast. I'm Maria Lawton, the Azorean Green Bean.
And I'm Angela Simoes, and we're just two chicks dishing about Portuguese food, culture, and what it means to be Portuguese.
So grab a glass of vinho or copo de café and join us as we talk about our favorite foods, reminisce about growing up Portuguese,
and interview some of our community's most successful chefs and food writers.
So sit down at our Portuguese table.
Happy New Year, Maria. How are you?
Boas festas, feliz ano novo.
Yes.
Yes, it's a new year, 2018.
Yes, and happy New Year to all of our listeners out there. It's been a while. It's sorry.
Been a while. Yeah, we'll address that in another podcast.
But yeah,
we'll address that in another podcast because 2017 was crazy for Angela and I, and we're going through a lot of mea culpa here. So we're going to do that in another mea culpa. It'll be titled
Mea Culpa.
But today I am so excited.
Oh my God, yes.
We've been wanting this gentleman on our podcast, I think, since we started.
Since the beginning, yep. I've been wanting to go to the store ever since I heard about it, which is a couple of years now, and I still haven't gotten there.
Oh, you will be. You will be. It's like the Mecca. You have to come visit. Yeah, that's the part of it. And to say that we have Mr. Michael Benevides here with us on the podcast is really, really exciting for both Angela and I. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, guys. I'm happy to be here with you guys today.
Yeah,
so for just the official intro, it's Michael Benevides, owner of Portugalia Market in Fall River, Massachusetts. Some may call it Mecca.
It's the Portuguese Mecca store. Yeah, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. You guys are too kind.
But like Maria said, we are so excited to have you, Michael. We've seen so many stories about your success and how you've really transformed Portugalia, and we can't wait to hear the details and share your story with our listeners. And it's just not fair that there's not a Portugalia in California. I think you need to open one because it's just not fair. I'm really feeling upset about this.
I have an idea, and I know I've said this to Michael after I came back from California, and that is you need to have pop-up stores like in different spots, because I just think it would be crazy. It would be crazy.
Yeah, I love California, and I love the idea of potentially having a store there someday. But it's a long shot. But we do ship, so we can get you the goods. It's just physically opening a location there would be a bit of a challenge, but it's not impossible. So.
Yeah. Now, for those that are listening and you're not aware of what Portugalia Marketplace is all about, it really is a family business. And it is comprised of Michael's mom and dad, and Michael is the VP, if I'm not mistaken. And then his sister is also part of the family and part of the business, and it is really a beautiful story, and I think it's a story that we need to share with our listeners. And for those that don't know Portugalia Marketplace, because here locally in New England, it's like we all know about Portugalia, but it's time that the rest of the country knows about Portugalia Marketplace.
Yeah.
So, Michael, could you tell us how it all began?
Sure. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Maria, so much for being an amazing, not sponsored, but an amazing endorsee of our market. You really spread the word tremendously for us, and I greatly appreciate all you do for us.
Oh, thank you.
So the store started, the store as we know it, today, Portugalia Marketplace, and pardon me, I'm a little bit under the weather, but
That's okay.
The market opened 4 years ago, October 15, 4 years ago. And it's we've been in business for, as you know, for 29 years. Next year, well, this year actually will be 30 years. We'll celebrate 30 years of business. So it wasn't just by chance that we opened up this 20,000 square foot store overnight. I mean, we've had a pretty good run for almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
My father started the import business in a 3-car garage in the back of a tenement house, which we lived in 30 years ago. And, I witnessed him struggling and making everything happen and in this little 3-car garage. And we slowly started to build a customer base where customers would come knocking on our door to have us open the garage to service them.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember your mom telling me that story, but I had asked your father, what did he start with selling in his garage? What was it, Michael?
So it was coffee. It was our very first import. So my father at the time, he started to, he wanted to work for himself, and he started to do importing. And the very first product he imported was Nescafé, which still exists today. But at the time, it was these little packets of instant espresso. So you wouldn't have to have an espresso machine at home. You could just rip open one of these little packets. It was perfect portion size. You dump it into the coffee and coffee cup and mix it with water, and you'd have an instant espresso. So that was the very first product we imported. And we went, door and door, and my father tried to put this in various wholesale accounts, and that wasn't cutting it. So he decided to slowly add new products. Bacalhau early on became a really big deal for us. We established a pretty solid connection with some exporters from Norway and Canada, and we started importing cod almost early on, and developed a following for having some of the best cod around.
Yeah, and all this in the garage.
That's correct. So all this is happening in the garage, and the business is turning into something a little bit more than just a backyard business. And at this point, my father decides to make a leap. And he at the time was working a second shift in a factory, like so many other Portuguese immigrants were working. And my mother was working in a factory as well. She was working first shift. He was working second shift. He was working mostly for benefits, health insurance, and also to provide, because the business initially wasn't making ends meet.
Sure.
But at this point, when we decide to make our second leap, which is in '92, I believe, my father decides he's going to go full time into the business and leave work, and so we opened up our second location, which is half wholesale, half retail, and at this point, it's still Portugalia Imports, which is
that's when I discovered you guys.
That's right. And that was the corner of Tremont and Bedford, and Bedford Street's a pretty well-known street in Fall River, but it didn't look, and you knew it. It didn't look anything like a store. It felt more like a warehouse than a store. And then so the business started to actually, fall into its own there. It grew very organically. No advertising, just simple word of mouth. My father, as you know, he's pretty gifted with customers. He's got a way.
He is just the sweetest thing, Michael. He really is.
Thank you. No, and he's a huge mentor for me. He's who I've witnessed my whole life in terms of customer service skills. I see how he treats the customers, and that's become a lot of our brand. Our brand has a lot to do with our level of customer service, and that comes directly from my father. I think he always knew how to treat the customers, play with the customers, joke around with the customers, but always sort of keeping the respect of the customer as well, and the trust of the customer, building that trust and that rapport with the customers over time. And so he'd meet a new customer today. He'd treat them really well. They'd bring back 2-3 new customers with them. And so the business grew this way, and it kept growing. And like I said, we didn't spend a cent on advertising at that moment. And we had a really, really solid business, wholesale and retail at that point. And then it became too much for the space we had. We had real space
It was
limitations.
tiny. It was a
Oh,
tiny space.
it was incredibly tiny, and you recall it was, so just to give you a perspective, it was about, the floor space was about 4,000 square feet of market space, and then our new market is roughly 18,000 square feet of floor space.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
so that was a big leap,
Yeah.
and that took some convincing on my part to convince my father that this was a good move going forward.
And this was a vision of yours, or is this something that he always wanted to do also?
Right. So no, at that point we decided, when the business, like I said, the business at the old location was doing well, we decided whether we were going to either expand our wholesale operation or we were going to go into retail. And so we started looking at some wholesale opportunities, looking for land, looking for buildings and we shortly thereafter realized that the wholesale business is a little more challenging. You sort of, you bankroll a lot of people. You always have a lot of money out there, and we were doing really well with retail. So, but we were kept our options open at that point. But then we found the building that we're in, and we started looking at that building and pursuing that building. Now we looked at that building that we're in, the mill that we're in,
Yeah.
2 years prior to purchasing that mill. A year and a half, we looked at it and we called on it, and at the time it just seemed unattainable for us because the money that they were asking for the property seemed way out of reach for us. And so we kept it sort of in the back burner. It's there, and if we'll make a play for it again if it's available, 6 months down the road. And so we kept that going, this little dialogue with the realtor. And then, we finally got to a number that we could agree upon. The realtor, the seller, and ourselves. And I got to tell you, the first time my father and I walked through the property, we immediately fell in love. We could envision the space transforming into a marketplace.
Yeah. How wonderful.
Yeah, and Angela, I don't know if you've been this way, but there's a lot of mills in Fall River, and a lot of the Portuguese people worked in these mills, and they're sort of these spaces that have sort of a negative image in Portuguese people's minds. The whole, because these were sweatshops, and a lot of people
They were sweatshops. Yeah.
in these sort of erroneous conditions, but a lot of these buildings are now becoming transformed into better and more positive spaces. So I saw that as a really nice challenge, and I thought that fit our model really well, because up until then we had worked in a 3-car garage, and then our second location was an old mill as well. So it kind of kept in theme with who we were. We never had traditional spaces. We never had, a cinder block building with drop ceiling and fluorescent lights. We always worked out of these very quirky spaces. So this felt right. It felt like it was part of our brand.
Yeah.
So we purchased the property. You guys can cut me off and ask any questions.
Oh no, I mean,
no, this is great.
The thing is I'm hearing this whole story again, which is a beautiful coming to America story. It's your typical immigrant story of coming here and succeeding, and with hard work. And I know your father Fernando and your mom Maria are the start of it all for your family. I mean, I know that this does not come easy. It's very, how can I say it, when you go into a business that is thriving and that is succeeding and is putting it's on display. Our culture is on display with our food and with other items that you bring in from Portugal, which I love, which is a whole separate thing. It's almost like needs to be a whole specialty shop for other stuff. But we're introducing Portugal to people who have never knew about it the way that you're showing them right there, that you and your parents are going, you know what, this is Portugal. This is who we are.
Well, yep, you're right. That's the mission. The mission has been, and you've done a tremendous job of this as well, of reaching out to second, third, fourth generation, and non-Portuguese
Yeah.
speakers and non-Portuguese people, which
Yeah.
is essential for our businesses to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to go outside of our own.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny? I'm hearing you when you're saying all the stuff and starting from in the garage. I mean, who hasn't tried starting a business in their home? Because that's where you start. That's where you're comfortable, where you feel you're not going to, lose out. Well, you can start there and then branch out into, and I remember that factory where it was a little part retail and the rest was wholesale, and trying to find a parking spot because all of these trucks were coming in and they were either dropping off or picking up. And then you'd walk in and you've got the first thing you would smell is cod, because there would be so much cod there. So the smell would like knock you off your feet. But you know what? We were used to that in the Portuguese community of going into these tiny little shops that were in different communities, of trying to get little bits and pieces of, the Portuguese market. And you would come in and it wouldn't surprise you to see cod right next to the, register. And it wouldn't be, and you've got one little aisle of Portuguese items. We were like thrilled just to be able to get that. So from seeing it to little markets like that were spread out everywhere and all of that, to what you and your family has done is truly remarkable, because now you've got a cod room, don't you?
That's correct.
Cod room. Okay, you have to talk about that.
Well, the cod room, and the story with the cod room, and I think I've mentioned it to you, Maria. It's when you walked into the old market, you'd walk into the market, and the first thing like you mentioned earlier, first thing you'd smell was salt cod, and that sort of. Now, if you're used to this is perfectly okay, right? And I am, and we probably are. So this is this isn't a put off in any way. But
I actually like the smell.
Well, and I don't mind it at all.
Myself. I don't mind it at all.
My wife my wife didn't mind it, but when I get home in the evening, or when all your clothes smells of salt cod, and she tells you leave the clothes by the door, that's a little. Or if you had to go to an event and you're walking out of the market and you just smell, you could smell me as I walked into the event. So that wasn't always, that was the downside to all that cod in the air. But we're very thankful to cod. Cod is very important for my family. It's been a massive revenue source for our business. It's in many ways it's the jolt. It gave the business the jolt it needed. And that's why today we have the salt cod room. The salt cod room, people have labeled it, when we tongue in cheek say it's, we're paying homage to cod. But we created this room that's odor controlled, although it's not, there's an odor controlled system in there, but there's nothing that can contend with the odor of salt cod. So the odor is still very present. I guess it'd be more present if that system wasn't there.
Right.
But it's temperature controlled, and we display the cod in wooden crates on top of a marble table, which is a really big, talking piece. The media loves it when they're in the market to shoot and to photograph. It's something striking, and it's not something you see in other markets.
Right.
So it gets shared oftentimes. You see people snapping photos and putting it all over social media, because it's really unusual. If you've walked into the market for the first time to see something like this, it piques a lot of people's curiosity. They ask a lot of questions. They come in, they want to know, they want, suggestions. What do you do with it? How do you prepare
and it's about the experience. Yeah. It's all about the experience.
It is an experience. And to top it off, you've got the cod coming from the two best places you could ever have cod come from. Yeah. And that is Norway and in Canada, in Newfoundland. All of where Portuguese fishermen have been fishing for centuries is up in Newfoundland.
That's correct.
It just, Portuguese cod, there's nothing Portuguese about it except Portuguese fishermen in there fishing it.
That's right.
Do not fish for cod in Portugal. Someone had asked me that question not too long ago, and they said, "Oh no, I see cod from Canada. I want cod from Portugal." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, the waters are too warm in
Yeah.
Portugal
Right.
for
Yeah.
cod to be, caught there. You have to go to the cold waters for that. And Norway and Canada or Newfoundland, those are the best. That is the best. If I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
No.
I'm curious to know a little bit about the evolution of your audience, and I think you've already talked a little bit about this and how you set up your store. You've got the cod room so that the smell is diminished a little bit, but talk a little bit about the evolution of how your audience grew from really, focusing on the Portuguese community to then bringing in non-Portuguese and exposing Portuguese products to the broader community. And the reason I want you to talk about this is because I think we find a lot of people that are trying to make a business of exposing things Portuguese to other people, and it can be a challenge, right? Because there's some education that has to be done.
Right.
Maybe people don't like the way it looks, or smells of the cod or whatever. So if you could just talk about how that evolution happened and some of the decisions that you made, and maybe even some mistakes or misses that you said,
Right.
oh, we tried this and it didn't work, so we kind of course corrected that. I think that'd be really helpful for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, the business was a completely different business, right? So we operated in our old location, and I would venture to say that probably 95+% of the market at that point was ethnic. It was a Portuguese market for Portuguese people.
Yep.
And then when we opened up the new location, now we're in a busier intersection, a lot more traffic count where we are, and then we have a visible storefront. So that alone gave us a lot more visibility and approachability as well. You could now approach our market, whereas before you weren't even certain it was a market. But by taking this mill, this mill concept, and it's become very trendy and everywhere. By taking this sort of adaptively reusing this space into a market space that photographs really well. It got us a lot of attention and a lot of media, and I'd like to say that I think that has a lot to do with getting new customers, new non-Portuguese customers into the market.
I agree on that.
The immediate attention that we got, whether it be the Providence Journal, the Boston Globe, the Valley Breeze. There's a lot of the publications that were sort of regional. They covered us almost immediately, and that got the word out significantly. And because we didn't really advertise in non-Portuguese media at that point. At this point, we advertised when we opened up the new market, but we were advertising mostly to the community to let them know that we were still, that we were in business for them as well. We this was a big this was the biggest argument my father and I had, and it was continuous. Was he was very protective, even overprotective of his base, and rightfully so. Because he had worked so hard to build this space.
Yeah.
So he really, really, really wanted to protect them. And I had sort of more of an open mind, and I wanted my objectives were to, of course, keep the base, but how do we make the market attractive enough for non-Portuguese folks? How do we attract other people into the market?
Right.
And we had to do that with merchandising, the way we display the goods in sort of this rustic manner, keeping the and we had in the feel, the place I think has the feel of sort of new and old. It's an old factory, but it's kind of been given new life. And
you know what, Michael, I'll go one step further than what you're saying, in that the press, the media, they absolutely showed or gave that insight of okay, this is new, this is brand new. And it was the Boston Globe and all those local papers and all that stuff. But let's not forget, Yankee Magazine did an article on you. And that went, Yankee Magazine, there are people throughout the U.S. that get that. There was the Edible magazine.
That's the food audience. Yeah, you're right. And that's,
so there was
a really good...
a cheese, the Culture. Yeah, Culture magazine, which is all about cheese. They came in, and because that's all, besides the fish, there is cheese like from everywhere in Portugal that you can't find anywhere else. I mean, this is it where they have it here. So all of that was an audience that never really thought about Portuguese markets. I mean, you're talking about Yagging Magazine, Culture Magazine. This is a large read magazines throughout the U.S. So that exposed you to even more people. But one thing that goes even further is, I think on weekends, Angela, if you were to go to Portugalia, there would be some taste testing going on, whether it's tasting Portuguese wines, because we all know Portuguese wines are amazing and are so undervalued. So you've got people, Michael has the people from actual vineyards, the actual Portuguese vineyards in there talking about, this is our wine. This is, I've met vineyard owners from Portugal that were there talking about their wines and how this, all of this stuff. And the same thing with, like he said before, with the merchandising. You go in there and it's not just the cod or the cheese or all the different sausages. You've got all the olive oils. You've got oh my God, the tunas. Tunas are amazing. Portuguese tuna is amazing. But you're going to have some taste testing. And there's food tours that we do, don't we, Michael?
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Those have been fun.
Yeah. And the thing is I'm laughing because I've done some of the food tours and we're going to do some more this year. So I'm laughing. But it's introducing people who've never or are not Portuguese or are so, third, fourth generation that haven't cooked Portuguese, haven't been around Portuguese food, and want to know how to buy, how to cook. We're like reintroducing them back into their culture. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And so just to paint a picture for our listeners who haven't been there, and I have not been there, but I've looked at pictures. It reminds me of like a cross between like a cost plus and just like a high-end food, almost like a Whole Foods kind of.
Yeah, it's the Portuguese Whole Foods. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious, because we run into this issue here, and Michael, since you've been here, and as Maria found out, our options to buy products are very, very limited out here. Yeah. And so how did you, and this might be a tough question, like a touchy question, but how did you handle the pricing of things, and how did the community respond? Because the reality is there's the import taxes, right? And so we're a business, so you have to make money. But sometimes we get people that walk into the Portuguese store here and say, oh my God, I'm not going to pay that for that. I can get that in Portugal for $5. Yeah, well, then you still have to pay the air flight. You got to pay your hotel. So yes, go to Portugal and pay $5 for it. But if you want to buy it here in California, it's going to cost a little more. So how did you handle those kinds of issues to maintain the customer base?
Yeah, so the base. So in the year one, my father and I, we agreed that we were going to have a price freeze, because we knew that there was going to be an issue when people crossed over. So we closed on, say, October 14th at our old location and opened October 15th at the new location. So that it was, we were set up to open. We opened the doors and one day closed one store and opened another. So we wanted to maintain pricing the same as our old location, because we were aware that there was going to be this sort of trial period where all our customers were going to come over and they were either going to connect with the space or they were going to disconnect, right? And so we were very aware, and we were giving them a lot to take in. From the old location to the new location, we were giving them a cafe, we were giving them a beer and wine section, prepared foods to go, a full, charcuterie counter with cheeses. It was our old concept on steroids. So we, but with so much more, with much better conditions. And then when customers walked in, we were very aware. They walk in and they say, "Oh wow, this is really nice," and then there's the occasional customer who takes a stab at you and says, "Well, I'm going to have to pay for all this, right?" But that being said, that's why we honored this price freeze. My father and I said we were going to keep our goods for the same goods you purchased at the old location, at the new location, you were going to be able to buy for the same price for a whole year. And we held to that. And I mean, it hurt us a little bit, quite honestly, but it was a little bit of our marketing. It was part of our
Mm-hmm.
marketing strategy to maintain the base. We weren't going to give them a new store with totally new pricing. We had to give them a new store with the same pricing.
That was very smart.
So we did that, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. You know, the customers came in and they loved the space. They really thanked us, and in many ways felt responsible for the space because they had supported us all these years. And here's their local market that they've supported for so many years now kind of in the spotlight, you know? And so they felt it was a beautiful emotional time, even for my parents, and to have all the customers coming over and be very, very congratulatory and very impressed and very happy with what we were able to do. And I don't know if Maria has probably heard my father say that this is our store, not my store.
Yes.
This is our store. He
He
constantly
does say
goes around.
that.
Yeah, he constantly goes around letting everyone know that this is not his store. It's everyone's store, because we really feel that way. We feel that, you know, it's not, my father never envisioned 30 years ago that he would have what he has today. He never. So he's a very devout man, and he's very grateful for everything he's been given in life. He's had to work for everything in life. It hasn't been a handout. But he feels grateful that he's been able to do what he loves for 30
Mhm.
Now,
years.
Michael, I know where, but can you tell our listeners where your family is from?
So we're from San Miguel, Candelaria more specifically, which is a small village not far from the airport, about 20 minutes outside of Punta Delgada. So both
And-
my mother and my father from the same town. And I was born in San Miguel as well. And I was born in Punta Delgada, but we were from Candelaria.
Candelaria. And you
Right.
came over how old, Michael?
I was 2. So in
You were a
79,
baby.
I was, well, just shy of 2. Yeah, I
Just
would be
shy
2.
of 2.
Yeah.
But you know, you were saying how your father says this. Yes, it's our store, and he does. He says that all the time. Whether it's something new that's there, and I say to him, "Oh, this is wonderful," and he goes, "Yes, isn't it wonderful?" In it's like ours. It's ours. Like not just mine. It's yours. It's ours. But I'm just so proud of the whole family. I'm just so proud of you for the simple fact of, and we're going to say this again, and this is something we're always saying in the podcast, and that is there are so many Portuguese success stories out there. But it all starts with hard work. And there's a lot of sometimes sacrifices in there. There is a lot of things that it does not come easy. But if you continue with the hard work, it pays off. It does pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and it has. And you know, and like I said, my father, it's been a long run. And as a kid, if I wanted to spend any time with my father, I'd have to work in the business. So in many ways, there were many sacrifices that were made to get the business to the point where it's gotten to today. But we feel so invested in the business. It's such a personal business. It's not just, for us, it's not just about the numbers. It's not about, it's about relationships. It's about personal connections. It's so much more. It's about our culture. The space, like as you know, Maria, it serves many purposes beyond just selling food. We have things from wine seminars after hours to events that we've created. So it's an event space as well. And at its core, we always want to, at the core of this all, it's always about promoting the culture, selling
absolutely.
the culture.
Now, you were saying you were brought up, and the only time you could spend with your dad, if you were going to spend it, was working alongside him. But now I know your wife, and you and your wife have, was it 3 children?
3 kids, correct? Yeah.
That's right. Now, are any of those 3 you're finding them working alongside of you?
These are different times. No, but I do like to take my kids to work. I really do. I enjoy taking my kids to work. Today, they they get there, it's a much different business than what it was,
Yeah.
say, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, we were a 3-person operation. Today we're close to 50. We're 44 employees or so. So
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what your mom told me.
what's that?
Your daughter.
Yeah,
That
she's right.
your daughter.
Yeah.
She says, I asked her that. This is the question I asked her a while ago. And I had said to her, because I had seen your children there, and they're just beautiful. They're beautiful children.
Thank you.
And they were going over to your mom, and your mom was hugging and kissing them and all of that stuff. And I said, oh, the next generation. And she said, yes, the next generation. She goes, I said, from the 3, which one? And she said, oh, my granddaughter.
Yeah.
I think she's already knows and sees what's going on and all that. So I think it's gonna be your daughter.
It's possible. It's possible. It's too far in advance. Well,
it's too early.
It's too early on to know. But
Yeah.
She really enjoys it. She, when I have to sometimes pull her out of the cafe or pull her out of the kitchen because she's back there and she's got a hairnet on and a hat and an apron, and now she's only 9. So
yes.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
I don't want to be accused of child labor.
They're adorable. But that was what your mom told me.
Yeah, she does like it more. I mean, I shouldn't say more than the others. I have a 4-year-old and I have a 12-year-old. The 12-year-old he's really involved in sports and he's got a lot going on, so he doesn't spend much time with me in the market on the weekends. But Sophia, when she's free, she'll ask to come into work with me. And when she gets there, she likes to put on the apron. Like I said, she likes to bag. So she likes. It's good. So she's cute. Interacting with customers, and it's how I started. So
yeah,
I get a kick out of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I kind of believe your mom, Michael. I'm just letting you know that. And the other question I have for you is, where do you see Portugalia marketplace or Portugalia in 5 years?
So that's a tough question, but I have expansion on my mind, but right now we're focusing on rolling out the e-commerce site, and when we've been at it for a year now, and we just came off our most successful Christmas.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah, so that was great. It was good to get a really good, set of orders for the holidays. It was really nice, and we're hoping that now turns into more orders throughout the year. And so we're slowly building a customer base. That's a really tricky business because that's, it's not just like a market. Well, you have to kind of start that from new. I mean, although we have a name and we have social media and we can advertise it that way, there's some digital marketing that has to happen on that end for that to really take off. But that's finally starting to do something. So that's where our efforts have been and will be for the next year or so. We need to work on expanding our wholesale operation. So now that we expanded the retail, and we decided, like I said, 5 years ago, we were going to go into retail expansion rather than wholesale expansion. We've become our biggest customer. So Portugalia Imports is its own entity. And Portugalia Marketplace is the market, and we self-supply. So we're having in some ways a tough time even self-supplying because our wholesale business is still relatively small. We need better facilities, better conditions, better efficiencies in place in that business to then be able to potentially grow into another store in another location. And just to build a wholesale business to wholesale goods into other markets, into non-Portuguese markets, into specialty food grocers all over New England and potentially the U.S.
Right.
Now, are there some items in your store that you can't really find anywhere else, whether it be another Portuguese store or, of course, mainstream stores? Are there things that you've tried to specialize in that are really hard to get?
Yeah. So we've worked lately with a lot of more exclusive product that we're the only importers, so we're bringing it in. We have, I mean, it's stuff you can get through other suppliers, but for example, conservas, we have a huge conserva section, and it's ever growing because there's a lot of demand for it right now, and it has a lot to do with recent travel to Portugal. We're all aware of how Portugal is trending in terms of
Yeah.
travel.
Mm-hmm.
So all these recent travelers to Portugal, they go to all the specialty food shops in the Baixa, for example, at the airport, and they see these walls and walls of conserva, and then they come back, and many of them come back packing these things, and they come back looking for them. And so online, we have people reaching out to us looking for canned sardines and canned tunas, and so that's become a popular item. So we're always offering new conservas. We have some olive oils that are exclusive to us that is so made by some small family farms, one in Trás-os-Montes and one in Alentejo.
Mm-hmm.
These are sort of the exclusive partnerships that we've made in the recent years.
And what's funny is wherever I go and I see stuff that I'm like, oh my God, it's like it's my market. I truly believe your father that it's my market too. So I'm always like, if I go to St. Michael or whatever, and I'll go, oh my God, this needs to be in Portugalia. Poor Michael, he gets texts from me. Michael,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We're always looking for new.
I do. I'm like, this poor guy must be so sick of me because I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I think this needs to be in the market, Michael.
No, not at all. No, that's you're right. I mean, and that's helpful. We have a lot of customers, and folks like yourself who come to us and say, I just came back from Portugal and I had this and I really love this. Do you think you can get this? And we make notes of these things, and when it's possible, we will try to bring it in. Now, not everything is possible. There's restrictions. There's
Right.
the importing game.
Like Ginger 9, I tried getting that but then I found out because for the guys that listen to our podcast, we spoke to the gentleman over at Ginger 9 who was like, okay, this would be perfect but then I found out you don't have what do you call it? Liqueurs. It's just beer and wine. So you're not able to carry the liqueurs there.
That's right. Even further, he would have to sell it into a distributor into Massachusetts, which is a possibility.
Right.
And then that distributor could then wholesale it to accounts that are allowed to sell spirits and liquors and things like that. Yeah, but we tried. We're always I'm checking into Portugal with some frequency. I try to go. This year I went twice. Last year I should say, and then this year I have a couple of trips planned because just to I attend a food fair to try to find some new products and also connect with some of my existing suppliers. And then when I'm there, I'm constantly looking in markets and new shops, trying to find out what the trends are, where Portuguese food is at the moment. And it's changing. It's ever changing right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different influences in Portugal.
All right.
And
you want me to tell you where I see Portugalia going to?
Yeah.
You know this. I'm putting this out there. Portugalia home.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I have those things. I have a lot of fun sourcing. The home products. Those are a lot of fun. Those are being made by small suppliers in Portugal.
I see an offshoot. Like I don't know if there's. I just see like almost like a Portugalia home, like in its own little section.
Yeah.
How can I explain it? It has its own little space.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And we've been discussing this for a while. If you've been to Portugalia, there's a bank in Portugalia.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right. So the bank was there, and prior to the bank coming on board, and the bank came on board initially, but the idea for that space where the bank was to have exactly what you're saying, having say a linen a shop that has linens, and it has artisan type goods, and it has maybe a Vista Alegre section. having all these really nice Portuguese housewares in sort of this dedicated space. Yeah, that's again, I really have a lot of fun trying to find that stuff. That's the stuff that gets me into small villages in Portugal, rather than
Yes.
it gets me out of Lisbon. Lisbon, you do a lot of your deals and you work out. You meet your suppliers, but going into those small towns, meeting these families who've been doing this for generations, making the montage, making the pots, the clay pots, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of fun.
So,
Yeah.
so I have another question, kind of getting into the community discussion.
Yeah.
So, so you mentioned, and everybody should know, Portugal's trending right now. It's really hot. And anybody who's been there recently, I mean, there's so many modern marketplaces, and yes, there's still a lot of traditional stuff there. But I mean, the way that, for example, Porto has revamped itself in the last 5 years is just amazing, right? And
Yeah. Correct.
so, there's a large part of the community here, and I don't know about the East Coast, but it still feels like Portugal is still old and still, does the festas and
Yeah.
some parts of it they do. But I mean, there's this whole movement of like the modern Portugal, right? And trying to translate that here, I think has been a little difficult. So I'm curious as to your observations on, how stores like Portugalia have helped kind of bring the community along to say, oh wow, this came from Portugal, it's so beautiful and modern, I had no idea. Or get clubs to do new and different things, or because there's a lot of conversation about the future of the community and where we're going, and I think stores like Portugalia have a big role to play in helping to shape that future so that there's something for everybody, and we're not stuck doing the same thing over and over again. And so I'm just curious on your take and your observations of the community. And I know it's East Coast is similar yet different than California, but was curious as to your take on that. And Maria, of course,
Yeah.
yours as well.
So I think that we're the second generation and third generation, in some cases the fourth generation had disconnected from their roots. I think. Well, not so much the second, but say third and fourth, and that's because because of the festas, and not so much because of the festas, but it just there was nothing new and modern
Right. Mm-hmm.
that was connecting them to their country. So they just looked at their country, or their grandparents' country, as being sort of antiquated
Mm-hmm.
and charming, yet too in the past. And I think that our market has really changed people's perspective. We see a lot of people coming to the market who all of a sudden are very interested in being Portuguese. And then when we show them, that in Portugal you can buy these exclusive wines, for example, and these beautiful olive oils and these beautiful cheeses, and they weren't aware that this existed in Portugal.
Hmm.
They thought that only Italians had things like this, or the French or the Spaniards, because those are the markets that they have grown accustomed to knowing as fine food markets, and they thought that our markets weren't sort of as progressive. So I felt, and I feel now that a lot of the second, third, and fourth generation, with sort of celebrities like Ronaldo and Mourinho, showcase, kind of being the ambassadors of Portugal, that a lot of these people are now proud to be Portuguese once again, or maybe
Right.
maybe for the first time, they're
Mm-hmm.
connecting. Now this is the more far removed generations. The younger generations, like myself, first generation, or from Portugal, I think have kept this bond. They were pretty proud to be Portuguese.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was always proud of my heritage growing up.
Yeah.
So you know, and me being sort of who I traveled a little bit and I saw how other markets operated. I saw, for example, here, we have Federal Hill in Providence, and we have an Italian section,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of different Italian markets. And when you visit these Italian markets, you look at these markets and you say, these are not just Italian people shopping in these markets.
Right.
You know, these are all kind of people, and this is sort of, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to market our goods in the manner that these folks are marketing their goods.
Yeah.
So we can.
I think it's a step. It's keeping both feet in two different areas. It's keeping one foot into what is traditional and one foot into what is coming and what is new. And it's that balance. It
Correct.
is.
No, and Portugal is exactly, I think this is the appeal of Portugal now, is the fact that it's still kind of in some ways stuck in the past. And that feels really authentic to a lot of people who are well traveled, traveled.
It's charming.
Exactly. The folks who have been to France 10 times and they've been to Italy 10 times, they now go to Portugal and they say, wow, this feels like Italy 20, 30 years ago. It feels natural. It feels unspoiled. But I mean, this is all going to change over time. We're aware of this.
Right.
With all this tourism, with all this foreign investment in Portugal, these neighborhoods are going to start to change. And, that's not necessarily a good thing, but you look at Portugal 5-10 years ago, it was a country in deep crisis.
Right.
And it needed some stimulus.
Yes, it did.
It's coming by way of tourism, which is great. So, but we see every day, just about every day, we see customers coming into the market who've recently been to Portugal. This has been also a very important segment of our market. Recent travelers to Portugal. They go to Portugal, most of the people who go to Portugal, they don't know what to expect. So a lot of, I would venture to say that non-Portuguese people, they go to Portugal, even the Portuguese ones who haven't gone in many years, they go sort of with, I'm going to Portugal, like as if they got an inexpensive flight and they're just going to go check it out, right? Not really giving it much importance. And then they come back and they're
blown away. Yeah, they're blown away. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this happen numerous times. I can't tell you how many times that I've had people tell me, "Oh yeah, we booked a trip to Portugal. It was cheap enough. The accommodations were inexpensive." And then they come back and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to book another one." So was that? I wish I had more time. This is exactly what's happening to Portugal today. So we benefit from that because the folks go there, they drink the wine, they eat the cheese, they see all these handcrafts, and then they come back and they become fans of those things. They become fans of wines, they become fans of the cheeses. They want to now consume these things, and we're there to fill that void.
That void, absolutely.
So it's been great. I mean, I would even say that I'm not sure that the market, the way it is, the size of the market would work 15 years ago or even 10 years ago.
No,
you're right. It wouldn't have, Michael, because it was during that time where if you'd go there, they were struggling. It wasn't something where people were like, oh, whatever. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Today, because of Portugal being the country it is, and it's great to see because, we know that Portugal had a tremendous brain drain. Right, it was a country that always had bright minds, but these bright folks had to leave Portugal to find any good employment opportunities. Right. Today, Lisbon is sort of this startup capital in Europe. It's really cool. It's really hip. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of young people want to be in Lisbon. They want to study in Lisbon. They want to live in Lisbon. And this is the complete opposite of what was happening 5 and 10 years ago, when young people wanted nothing to do with Lisbon. So it's really tremendous and I'm very inspired by it when I visit Portugal to see a lot of the young people in the food sector. I'm walking the trade shows and I'm talking to a lot of young people who are in the food sector. They're traveling all over the world, trying to sell their products into, Asia, Middle East, Russia, Scandinavia, US. They're really global thinkers in Portugal. For a small country, we're pretty broad-minded.
Hey, like I read the article the other day, Portugal is hot.
Yeah.
Oh,
everything about Portugal or being Portuguese is hot right now.
Yeah, no, we can't. And the media has been so favorable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tremendous. I don't know if it has to do with the tourism office, whoever's in charge of the director of tourism, but the U.S. media, the New York Times, has been nothing but gracious to Portugal in the last 4 or 5 years. They've given them so much love.
Hmm.
All the major media, all the major
Right.
publications, whether it be the wine sector, is doing tremendously well as a result of all the love it's getting in the press.
Hmm.
That's one thing that we do at Portugalia. We have upwards of 400 or 500 Portuguese wine SKUs, which is probably, you won't find it, I don't think, anywhere else in the U.S.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's incredible. And I also love the fact that the Andre who you have there, the workers that you have in that section, you come in there and you go, you know what, I'm having this and this. I already tried that wine. Which one do you recommend? And it's another new wine, another new SKU. That comes from this remote village in
Hmm.
somewhere and they know all about it. They know exactly what part of Portugal it's from, how big the vineyard is, all of that stuff, and try this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, our wines are amazing. Our wines
Hmm.
are amazing.
There.
yeah, no,
So,
Andre's tremendous.
Yeah.
I just have to say, Andre's tremendous. He's got a great palate. And this is the approach that we take at Portugalia. There's some of the sectors in the market that still need a little bit more attention. But so we have to, being a Portuguese market that's open for all, we have to spend a little more time with the consumers, the new consumers who are coming into the market, who are not aware of any of our goods. The wines, for example, the American consumers used to drinking Cabernets, Merlots. They're used to drinking varietals. Well, in Portugal, we're a blending country. We sell mostly blends, and we have to educate the consumer about what these blends are all about, how the various varietals that exist in Portugal. So we spend some time with them. We give it's like a little crash course.
Yeah.
And we have to take the same approach in cheeses and in the charcuterie and the codfish. We have to spend time and let them know for example, in the codfish, how to soak it.
Yeah.
This is something that some people walk in, they're intrigued, and okay, I'm gonna try this. We have to give them a little crash course on how they can now try this. They have to take it home, soak it. We give them pointers, tips, and we send them on their merry way. And hopefully, and we make fans that way. They get to know us by name. They come in, they like the recommendations. They're discovering Portugal, and it's exciting for them.
Yeah.
They
hmm.
buy 3 or 4 wines today, and then they come back with tasting notes. I really really like this one not so much. Do you have more like this? And so
Hmm.
we build this really good rapport with the customers, and win them over slowly. And then I like to think that the goods speak for themselves in terms of the quality.
Right. I
So
agree.
that's how we've been able to market ourselves to the new consumer.
Well, I'll say this, and I've said this to other people who have gone there, or I tell them, I suggest them to go there, or whatever the case may be. And I always say it's almost like taking a mini trip
Hmm.
because you step in, and to me, it's the market that I go to when I'm in San Miguel, and it's in Punta Delgada, and it feels almost a little bit like that because you walk in and it's all the what's in season for fruits and vegetables and your figs and your beans, your dried goods, all of that stuff is there, and then you go in another area and you've got all the different wines and beers and and you've got some fortified wines, you've got Madeira wines, some ports. Oh my God, the white port, which I love white port. And then you go into the ready-made foods. So every day there's some that stay onto that menu, but there's always like little changes every day on what's being made. And then you've got all your different sausages and hams and your prosciuttos, and then you have your what do you call it? All your cheeses and Portuguese butter, which for those of you out there who've never had Portuguese butter, you've got to have Portuguese butter. It is the best butter. So
Hmm.
Agreed.
creamy. And then you've got your aisles in between. All of that is all your cooking ware and your rice and your seasonings and your coffees and your teas and it's and they're all stuff from Portugal. So I feel like, I used to go to St. Michael and I used to come back with like a suitcase full of stuff because it was like, oh my God, these little things that I can't get here. I don't need to do that anymore. So my family, when they're coming here to visit me, they'll say, okay, Maria, what do you want me to bring? And I'm like, no, you don't have to bring me anything because I can get everything at the market. It's like a little trip without getting on that plane. It's a little trip. And you always leave and you always want to come back for more. And that is true success. I think whenever anyone leaves a store and enjoys it, because it is an experience in itself, visually as well as if there's taste testing, taste by mouth and by nose. I mean, it's just a whole way of experiencing a market. Mm-hmm. And then when you get home and you enjoy all that stuff, you go, oh my goodness, I can't wait to go back. So that's what I'm very lucky that I live close next to. And I feel very spoiled about that because I know those that are listening here, especially those in California, when I was out there, they're like, oh my God, we wish we had more out here. Or people down in Florida that are like, oh my God, we wish we had that here. And I know there's Portuguese in, Idaho? There's a whole bunch of Portuguese community in Idaho that I hear from them. And whenever I put anything out there in the market, it's like, oh my God, I wish they were here. So I'm sorry to say, yes, I'm spoiled in that sense because I know when I was in California and up in Lodi or up in Gustine, and the closest Portuguese market is 5 hours away? It's crazy.
Whenever you're ready, Michael, we'll open one here. You just let me know.
Yeah. So you're located where exactly, Angela?
So I'm in the Bay Area, and we have Trade Right Market, which is connected to Bacalhau Grill that sells some items.
That's in San Jose, right? San Jose.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But still, it's small. It's nowhere near the size and scope of what Portugalia offers. And then, here, I actually live in Fremont, and there's a little liquor store, Sousa's Liquors, that sells some items, which is, it's helpful. But again, you just don't get the variety of the cheeses and the
I've visited Bacalhau Grill before. I've been to San Jose. Yeah. Because I've worked with a supplier in the Bay Area before, HGC.
Oh, yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'm aware of the area a little bit. But you guys have a restaurant, Adega, right?
I was going to mention when you were talking about chefs coming out of Portugal, and so Adega is in San Jose. They are San Jose's only Michelin-starred restaurant.
2 years in a row.
Yes. Can you believe that? Like, San Jose as a city is huge with like hundreds and hundreds of restaurants, and none of them have a Michelin star until Adega came on the scene, and 2 years running they've been
talk about another adorable family. I mean,
they've been great. And then of course we have the three restaurants in the Sonoma area, Tasca Tasca, La Salette, and Cafe Lucia.
Yeah.
Right. Manuel is vid. I've met him before.
Yep.
Manuel is adorable. Oh my God, what a great man.
Yep. And then we have our new restaurant in San Francisco, Finalmente. We have a Portuguese restaurant in San Francisco called Uma Casa.
Yes, Altamo.
Yeah. So it's been, they're here and there, but again, kind of like what Maria was saying, if you're out in the Valley or even up in Sacramento, which is, the capital of the state, I can't tell you how many times people have posted on Facebook, where's the closest I can get some linguiça or where's the closest place I can get bread or whatever. It's a need out here. And yes, online, but not everybody is tech savvy and not everybody wants to pay shipping and, things like that. Or maybe they don't know what to buy, to kind of to your point about this experience of being able to taste test and try things and smell them. And, they get to, they know what they're getting when they can actually experience it versus looking at a picture on a website or something, but
so it's a different, we have a lot of similarities, like you said earlier, but there's some stark differences between the communities as well. Because I think geographically we're closer to Portugal on this coast.
Yep.
So I think we have a lot of, say, newer brands, maybe that you don't have, and there's some bigger importers on this side as well. And we're a small importer, and we like it that way. And
Yeah.
there's some big importers in New Jersey and even in Smithfield, Rhode Island. There's some big Portuguese companies that have been here for a while, and so it seems like a lot of it starts here in terms of the way it gets into the U.S. and then gets dispersed from here.
Hmm.
But no, it's, who knows? Like I said, we're online. We can get you guys the product. The problem is the shipping. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shipping to California is never an easy task. It's just,
Yep.
yeah, there's its challenges for sure.
Mm.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, so we have reached the end of our time, but I do want to get in a couple of the fun questions that we normally ask people, Maria.
Yes.
We've talked so much about the business and how wonderful it is, but we need to know what Michael likes to eat, right?
What, like
Yeah. What's your favorite? What's your favorite? Let's say you wanted right now something. What would be that favorite dish, Michael?
Well, it's gonna sound boring, but bacalhau. It's what else?
Okay, but how? How?
All ways.
101 ways.
Yeah. So my preferred way is grilled. That's my preferred bacalhau asado with batata zamur. I love that.
Ooh.
And then I also like it fried, pan fried. My mother just made some recently, and with it's like Azorean style with
Yes, with a molho cru. Oh.
No, she does it with molho de vilão, with with the inhams, which was to die for. So
my goodness.
I really love bacalhau. That's my it's the food. It's one food I actually crave if I go without.
Interesting. Okay, now we're going to go to the other spectrum. What can't you stand?
There's not much I won't eat, honestly.
Really?
Even dobrada?
I can eat dobrada. It's not my favorite. It has to be really small, like chopped up really fine. Mm-hmm. If it's really chunky pieces, then I have a tough time with it. But otherwise, I consume it, every so often. It's not my go-to though, not at all. But there's really not much I won't eat. I mean, I eat so many different things. My wife is French, and on her side of the family, they eat a lot of different things as well. And they thought that I would be picky when I first married in, not knowing. and they've never been able to outdo me. I mean, everything they put in front of me, I'll eat. So. It's not that I have this insane appetite, but I'm really enjoy food, and I'm not really picky at all.
Interesting. So, okay, now we have to talk about your first food memory.
My first food memory?
Yes, growing up. What would be that first food memory?
I don't know. That's difficult, but I would say feijão, like feijoada.
Oh.
As a kid, I remember, and the funny thing is, my 4-year-old is obsessed with feijão, with feijoada. Whenever he sees my grandmother, he just wants beans. My mother rather.
Yes.
So and I from the young, as far as I can remember, I remember eating beans by the bowl, like just a feijoada that had pork in it and it had the beans. So that's my, I guess, youngest food. I mean, that I can remember. I mean,
wow,
that would be it. Yeah.
So do you like to cook? Is there something that you make?
I like to cook. I'm not very good at it, but I like. So I love to eat. How's that? I'm much better at that than I am at cooking.
That works.
But it's life is so busy, and but I do occasionally enjoy cooking. But my wife will tell you I'm the worst mess maker in the kitchen. Right? I don't clean as I go, so everything just piles up, and then I end up with a kitchen that's a disaster.
And I'm going to have one more question here. And that is, okay, we're sitting at the table.
Yeah.
We're having dinner. And who would you want to invite? If you had to choose anyone, who would you choose to be sitting there at the table with you?
Oh boy, that's a hard question. Never really thought of that. Who would I want to have dinner with?
Yes.
It's you and me, Maria. Come on.
Well, of course, you two were in there.
Besides Angela and I, you're not getting away with that easy.
No, well, like modern day, I would say Jose Avilés, the famous chef in Portugal.
Oh.
I think it's really interesting what he's doing. He's got sort of this modern spin on the classics, which really speaks to me. I'm intrigued by his cuisine. So I guess, he's not like a notable figure. Well, he is. And
he is. He absolutely is.
In terms of Portuguese cuisine, contemporary Portuguese cuisine, he's notable. So I guess it would be him because I'm just intrigued by how he creates these dishes and his style. So
nice.
I guess that would be it.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, and just makes me want to go out to Portugalia even more. Not that it was already on my bucket list. So.
I was going to say, you've got to do it.
When will we see you on the East Coast?
Well, I won't be traveling anywhere until probably June. But, in June, I'll be out in DC. Maybe I'll make a little side trip to Massachusetts.
It's not that far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
So, yeah. But, we're just so proud of you, Michael, and your family. And
thank you so much.
It's a beautiful store. Listeners, if you haven't been there yet, go to portugaliamarketplace.com and check out some of the pictures and just all the stuff they have. And then if you happen to be in Fall River, please stop by. It's amazing. It's really, we need a Portugalia in every community.
Yes, we do.
we do.
Yes, we do. And I'm going to be there telling Michael along the way, Michael, how about this? Michael, how about that? That I'm going to continue, Michael.
No, Maria, you're a great sounding board. No, I appreciate all your advice, and I like sharing ideas with you. It's great.
Oh, thank you again. Thank you so much. I know you're busy and taking out the time to talk to Angela and I, and to all our listeners. We really appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much.
And this was a lot of fun.
Continued success, honey.
Yeah, Happy New Year's to you. And
thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That's the first time I've ever talked to Michael on the phone, and he's just as gracious and lovely as I anticipated that he would be. What a really good guy.
My God. I said this before, but like his mom, Maria, his dad, Fernando, then it's him, and then it's his sister, Jen. And the four of them are just the sweetest, nicest people you could ever meet. And they are truly thankful and grateful for everything. Because as we heard, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of, sacrificing, but, they're succeeding, which I love to see people succeed. So yay.
And I love how it's such a modern concept that's doing well and attracting a broader audience. That's a hard thing.
One of the things I forgot to mention, and he forgot to mention, there are busloads of people that come in to see the store.
I know you had mentioned that before, yeah.
This summer, while I was there, this bus pulled up, and it was Canadians.
How funny.
It was a busload of Canadians that had gone down.
Destination trip.
Yeah, they were there for, whatever. I think it was like there was a certain feast that was going on in Fall River, because as we all know, Fall River is the 10th island. Mm-hmm. And so there was a big, huge feast going on. And so this busload of Canadians came in, and they were like, like Mecca. You open the door, and I swear you hear that noise. Because it's just all these wonderful, amazing things. So I'm so glad he took the time to talk to us. We've been wanting to talk to him for so long. And he's a busy man.
Yeah, no, that was great. It's a long time coming for that conversation. So
Absolutely. Well worth the wait.
Yep. So, well, everybody, thanks for joining us. Here's to 2018 being a great year for everybody, and
Yes.
a lot more podcasts in the making, and you'll be hearing from us quite a bit. Send us your comments and your suggestions, and because we love hearing from you. Write us a review on iTunes, please, please, please. That helps people find our podcast, and share this podcast with family and friends, and make sure you subscribe and that they subscribe. And we're on SoundCloud as well as iTunes and Stitcher. So if you happen to listen on Stitcher, we're there too. So with that, we'll say até a próxima, Maria.
Até a próxima, querida.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for listening to our Portuguese Table podcast.
If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so on SoundCloud or iTunes.
And all episodes can be found on our website at www.ourportuguesetable.com.
You can also reach us at feedback@ourportuguesetable.com with comments, questions, or suggestions. Até a próxima! This episode is sponsored by Ginja 9, the Portuguese sour cherry liqueur from Óbidos, Portugal. Crafted by hand, made with love. For more information, visit www.ginja9.com.